Alright, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Sean, and today we're just going to be going over a basic overview of CorelDraw. So I saw someone say they're learned the basics but purchased the X6 and the Wizard 3.0. Will there be much of a difference? There are a few things that are going to be different with the X6 to the X8. A lot of the basic tools that we're going to be covering today will be the same. They could be in a little bit of a different location on the side here, on our panel here if you're looking at the screen. So your button layout might be a little bit different if you're using a previous version. And there are little things that Corel added that will hopefully make it a better experience. It definitely, if you ever used the older version of CorelDraw, there were a lot of problems with crashing and stuff like that. So a lot of those little bugs have been fixed with the newer versions. And also little things like if you were working on a project and you had to undo, well, with like X6 you might only be able to hit undo 10 or 15 times. With X8 it usually lets you go back to the start of your project. So there's little things like that that might be different from X6 to X8, but you'll still be able to design and do everything that we're creating in X6 and X8. Right? So just to show of hands, or just to get a little feedback, how familiar is everyone with CorelDraw? Are they pretty new, or are they a little experienced? Alright, so we got a little bit of both. Alright, so this is going to be a little, okay, so we have some that went from the Silhouette to the X6, or to Corel. Okay, so even coming from Silhouette, there's going to be a lot of things that are similar. They're just going to be different, probably labeled as a different name or a different tool, but you can still kind of do the same thing. So we'll go ahead and start. When I'm working with, the first thing I do when I'm working with Corel, or someone's new to Corel, is I edit their save settings. So has anyone done that before? I think Shara, we did that with our training. But does anyone know how to automatically update the save? So if Corel does crash and you're working on a project, you know, maybe 20 minutes into a project and it crashes right before that, and then it gives you that auto backup. Tools and then customization. Or you can go to options. It's going to take you to the same look. It's going to bring you to this you'll see options right here. So it's the options and the customization is the same. It just starts you in the customization tab. So with Corel, the first thing I always tell people is go to the save feature and back it up every 5 minutes. So when you're first starting, it's probably going to be set back up every 20 minutes. So the first thing we want to do is change that to 5. Right? That way if we're working on a project for, 6 minutes, whatever we have completed up to that 6 minutes, it's going to save. Otherwise, if you leave it on 20 and you work on a project for 15 minutes, it's not going to save any of that work you did. So it's very important. Change that to 5. And if you want it, it's going to save in a temporary folder, and that's going to be the folder right here. So you'll have that information. If you want it to go to a certain folder, you can hit specific folder, hit browse, and then save it anywhere on your computer. So with that, we're going to stay in this little option / customization, and we're just going to kind of go through some of these options and stuff we can change. So right now we are the first thing you'll see is appearance. We're at 100%. If you like to be a little bit more magnified, you can increase that and it will help see your tools a little bit better around your Corel. So as you see, we're at 175. And now the buttons are a little bit larger. Keep in mind, it's going to affect your work area because it's going to have to take up more room. And the buttons over here, it's only going to fit the first 10 rather than that whole row. So then you'll have to start hitting this arrow down here, and that will show all the other tools. So if you do magnify it, keep in mind that you're going to lose out on some of your workspace area. Right? So we'll leave it back at 100. Now down here you'll see color. The theme, right now it's going to be set into light. If it will go all the way to this dark theme. So if you like working, you know, in a different, if you want it all black, you can change all that here. And then the window border, you can edit all that. So you'll see at the top and around it now, it's white. If you wanted it red, blue, you can change your whole appearance in here. I'm going to keep it simple and just stay with the light. And so then we'll keep on moving. So we'll go to general. So when we start up Corel, a lot of times you'll see that introduction come up where it says like welcome to Corel. If you guys don't need that page, you know, after the first time you open it, you probably don't need that anymore. So here on CorelDraw X Startup, instead of having the welcome screen, you can just start on a new document and just get right going. You don't have to, you know, delete that, wait for it to load, get rid of that page, and then open one. It will just start you right in a new document. So other than that, you're probably not gonna change too much. You can definitely edit these if you want, but that's the only real button in here that I'll change. Right, so display, not too much in here that we're going to edit. The only thing we want to make sure is that our mouse is set to zoom. So if we have that little scroll in between our mouse, this will help zoom in and out of our project. That will act as a magnifying instead of having to actually hit the magnifying tool. Right, so it should already be set there. If not, definitely make sure it's set to zoom. Right. So not too much in the edit that will change. Power clip, again, nothing too much in here. So we already hit save. So we'll come down to document. And this is going to help us with our actual page layout and our colors. So if you're working with a certain color, if you want to work in RGB rather than CMYK, you can change that here. Our page size, now you'll see up here 8.5 by 11, so this is our standard letter. You can drop down to anything you want here, or you have the custom option. So if you just know or like when your workspace starts at 20 inches by 20, we can set that here. And then inches, add page frame if you want, and then just hit OK, and then that will update your page and always save it at 20 by 20. Same with the layout. We're not going to change much in here. Our background, again label, we're just going to skip that and go to background. So if you want our background color to be anything else, you can drop that down here. Or just leave it at no background. It's up to you. Again, this is just kind of customizing our workspace, and then everything else we'll pretty much leave as is. Okay. So does anyone have any questions about how to customize the appearance or save settings or anything? Any of these options? Alrighty. So now we'll go ahead and go into kind of like the basic tools in the toolbar over here on our left hand side. So when we work with Corel, and most of them, whether it's X6 or X all the way to X8, are going to have a majority of these tools already here. One of the differences I'm pretty sure is like to get to the basic shapes. Now it's under the polygon, where I think before it might have had its own, or it might have been under a different one, but now all these are combined under polygon, so it does little things like that, but otherwise most of the X6 to X8 tools should still be there. So the first one is the pick tool. That's going to be our standard to highlight any objects, and I'll just draw a couple out here. So we have the pick tool. When you work in Corel, this is what's different from a lot of softwares, and let me just add some color so we can see these a little bit better. Especially, I know we had someone coming from Silhouette. So with Silhouette, when we use our pick tool to grab something, I'm pretty sure in Silhouette you just have to pretty much highlight that object and it will consider it grabbed. In Corel, you have to highlight the entire object and then let go to grab that specific object. So if I just bring my mouse and I cover up 90% of that object but don't get the last bottom portion, it won't select anything. So again, if we have a lot of stones, if we're working with an object that has a lot of stones and we want to make sure to grab all of them, we have to make sure we cover the entire area of every stone. So if I just leave that little portion out of the last stone, it will only grab those 3. So if I hold the pick tool, you'll see it drops down and says freehand. So the freehand pick is pretty cool, and when we're working with stones, it works really well to just get a certain area. And let me actually, we're not going to get really into the wizard today, but I'm just going to draw a quick little circle with some stones just so we can highlight this point. So I'll get rid of that. I'm going to go back to my pick tool first, highlight, and let me open this to clear the path. Oops. All right. So with the pick tool, or the freehand tool, now what I'm able to do is, let's just say we have this design and we'll make it a couple different colors. Now, if I just want the green, I can go to my freehand pick and I can zoom in here and I can just draw a circle, or my freehand pick, I can just draw it around this certain area. And I'm going to come right through here and come back up. And then once I'm pretty much out in the clear, I can let go. And now you can see that I just selected just those stones. So if I just want a couple stones in here, I can just grab those particular stones, come through, let go, and it'll just grab those. So then rather than trying to take the pick tool and, you know, if you have it this way, you might, since it's a square, I can easily do it, but if I wanted, you know, just the green and the red, there's no way I can really grab this. But if I grab the freehand, now I can come in through here, go out here, come like that, and now I'll just grab the red and the green and leave all the purple out. So does anyone have any questions about the pick or the freehand pick? Next is the shape tool. Now the shape tool is nice. I'll use this with certain projects, especially like when I want like a square shape, but you don't want these rounded, you know, these straight edged corners, a 90 degree. If you want those smoothed out, we can just take our shape tool, and you'll see these boxes pop up around my shape. Draw that again real quick. Hit our shape tool, so you'll see those boxes around each corner. So now if I drag one of these boxes towards the center, it will affect all the different boxes, and you'll see how it's rounding those corners out for me. Someone's saying the sound's going in and out. Are you guys all having trouble with the sound again? Can everyone hear me all right? Okay. All right. So Paula, if it keeps going in and out, sometimes you might just have to get in and out of the webinar real quick. If it's still having trouble with the audio, just let me know, and I'll try to rearrange them or fix them. Right. So back to our shape tool. So just like that, it'll just round out the corners for us and just give us a totally different looking square. So pretty simple tool. Definitely you'll use it when you're designing. The next thing we have is the crop tool. So if we're working, let me just drag a picture in here real quick. I'm just gonna grab a logo from the web. So if someone Obviously, I'm going to use a copyrighted image, so this is going to work in all examples, but let's just say someone sends you their logo as an image. Well, the first thing we'll have to see is, okay, what size, let's say they want this rhinestoned out. So we need to know that, okay, they want it at 8 inches wide and the height proportionate to the width. Well, if I make this 8 inches wide right now, their logo actually isn't 8 inches, but the picture that brought in, what is 8 inches wide? But we want that actual, just the logo 8 inches. So this is where we can use the crop tool to help get that design out. So again, if you're working with anything else on your screen, I would recommend just copy this and open up a new page. And you can just do that by hitting the plus right here. So let's just bring this here. And I'll show you why I'm doing that. So I'll go back to our page 1 that we have our red squares on it. Now if we bring this crop tool over, we're just going to kind of get just the apple. Now if I go outside of it on the left and right, I did that on purpose in the bottom, I can grab these boxes and just manually drag them back up and get it as close as I want to that apple. Alright, and now to crop it, you just double click on the mouse. So I just click, and now you'll see that it's 4 inches wide compared to what it does. So it gets rid of all that extra around it, and now we can make this 8, and then now we're able to know this is exactly 8 inches wide, and now we can stone out the design. So that's basically what we'll use the crop tool for most of the time. It's just kind of chopping out images to help us get the right dimensions. Sometimes when you use the crop, when you hit that double click, it will pick up on other objects and think that's part of the image, and sometimes get rid of it. So that's why I brought it to a new page, but it seemed to not do that with these squares. But keep that in mind when you're using the crop, that sometimes when you crop stuff out, it could get rid of other objects on your page. Right, so the next is the magnifying glass, the zoom tool, but like I said, if you have that scroll on your mouse in between the left and the right click, you can if I scroll backwards, it will zoom out. If I scroll forward, it will zoom in. So with Corel, the zoom can be very tricky at first. What it does is follow your mouse. So if I have my mouse in the center, if I just go straight back, it's going to go there. If I bring my mouse, let's just scroll a square at the top of my page here, and a square down at the bottom right. So if I want to get to this square at the top left, I put my mouse on that square, or you can even go to the top of that object, and then you just scroll forward. Alright, so that's going to bring you right to that object. So if you want it in the middle of your screen, you can even go a little to the left of it, and each time you scroll, it's going to get a little bit closer, so you can change up how you have the mouse. So the first one, I scroll, gets a little bit closer, so now I can bring it back here, and it'll bring it right into my page. So if I want to get down to this bottom right area, I just bring my mouse there, and then just scroll right to that point. So sometimes with the scroll, even though you might just be wanting to go straight forward, but if your mouse is down here on the bottom left and you go forward, well, it's just going to bring you to nothing. Right? So the mouse can be very sensitive at first, but once you kind of understand how it works, it makes it a lot easier. And then if you don't have the scroll and you need to magnify, you have the zoom tool right here, so that you have the plus and minus. Or when I'm up here, you have this little percentage right here. So our zoom level is at 1% right now. We can't go any more than this or any farther away. If I hit to page, it will bring me right to that page that I have drawn. To width, same thing. It's going to read that page and bring it right to that. So those are little shortcuts, and it has, the percentages too. So if you go to a certain percentage, you can zoom in that way too. So does anyone have any questions about the zoom, the scroll, any of the magnifying features with Corel? All right, we'll keep on moving. So the next one is our freehand tool, but when I hold that down, you're going to see a lot more options on here. So the freehand is pretty simple. I can just click, hold down, and draw whatever I want. If I just click, it's just going to give me kind of like a straight line. If I hold it, I can draw whatever I want. If I just click, it's just going to put my start point, and then when I click again, my end point. So the freehand, you can kind of do both with this. Again, it's very hard to design with this freehand. Most of the designing we do, we never really use this tool. The biggest one we'll use here is the B-spline. So the B-spline is perfect for tracing an object, and I can go back to, let me just close out our page 1 and go to page 2 where we have our apple design. So the B-spline is a really nice tool for tracing. So anyone that does tracing, we have and I'll show this next, we have a trace bitmap feature in Corel already. So it does trace pretty well, especially a black and white object. It can trace very easily. However, sometimes you'll have an object that may be very blurry or involve a lot of colors, where you're going to have to use the B-spline instead and do a manual trace. So if I drop down and hit B-spline, I can kind of zoom in on my object, and every time I click, it's going to leave a little node behind, and those are going to connect to form our object. So I'm just going around this object and just tracing it. So I'm just kind of clicking every once in a while around the outline of this apple, and I'm just making a trace. So we're essentially, what we're doing is taking a picture or image, a JPEG, and turning it into a cuttable or usable vector for our designs. So once I get to this point where I started, it will close out my apple, and I didn't do the top part yet, but that's going to be my new apple or my new vector. So then I can finish it with just coming up here, tracing the leaf, and see how I went off a little bit on that one? You can't edit the B-spline while you're creating it. So if you make a little mistake and you go offline a little bit, that's okay. Just go back and start tracing as you were, like you didn't make the mistake. And I'll make a bigger one here just so I can show you. You know, I was talking to someone and I accidentally clicked way off. That's okay. I can just come back and start tracing my design like nothing happened. So great question. I'm left clicking with the B-spline. So when I'm going around, every time I want to make a new spot, I'm left clicking. All right. So now we have the top of our vector. Obviously, this isn't a nice looking leaf, but what we can do is if I double click, you'll see those nodes that I trace my design with. So every time I click, it's going to leave one of those boxes behind, and those are called nodes. So you can edit these nodes once you complete the object. So if I just delete, I'm going to highlight this node right there and just delete. And now you'll see how that line just pretty much fixes itself. Right, so same with this area here. I can click on the node and hit delete, or I can just double click the node and it will go away as well. So I still have this little area that's not perfectly clean. So now I kind of just will delete a few of these nodes out and see if I can get that line to be a little bit smoother. And to add a node, I don't have any nodes in this area. You don't see any of those blue boxes. So if I double click, I can add a node and then maybe pull that out a little bit to make that just look a little bit closer to my actual leaf. So all these, once they're on there, can be edited. So if I wanted a really fat leaf, you know, I could do something like that. So again, these nodes, once they're there, you can edit in any way. So if you get stuck or you make a mistake while you're tracing, don't just stop and delete the trace, just work through it, and then you can finish or fix it all when you're done. And if it's easier, I moved it away, but sometimes if you just leave it on the actual object and then delete your nodes, it helps with lining it up and just making sure it looks a little bit closer to that object. So if it's easier that way and then you want to move it, you can do it that way too. So now this is a vector and this is our image. So when we have a design in Corel, that's how we'll tell the difference. So look at the difference. I'm going to weld this just so it's one object. When I move my new vector around, you see those blue lines? You see how it's just a single blue line? That's our cut line. That when we send it to our cutter, that's the line that it's going to read to cut out our vector. When I move our image around, it's just a gray background and you don't see any cut lines. So if I try to send this to a cutter, it's not going to work. And same with, I go to the wireframe. So wireframe shows all the cut lines in your object. You have a little shortcut right here on the TRW wizard. If not, you can go to View. And wireframe is going to be the second option down. And Enhance is what we're always in. So to go back, you'll just hit Enhanced. So when I go to the wireframe, it will show me my cut lines. And this is a good practice to just keep in mind before you send a project over. If you're new to creating, sometimes we can leave stuff behind in a design that we don't see. So I'm going to draw just this cut line through my object that I don't want there. But if I go to my Enhance view, you guys don't see that line. So there's no way of knowing visually that that line's there. If I highlight over it, I can see it. But you see how it's white like that? So if you right click on any color, a right click, it will make that outline that color. So my black object here, if I put a yellow outline, if I right click this, it will add a nice yellow outline. Now that doesn't make this a two-color object all of a sudden. That just is giving us an outline color. So it's still a one-color design. It's just kind of showing us the outline. So if we accidentally make our outline of a line or a cut lines white, well, we're not going to see that. It's not going to show on our design. And when it's layering over an object we want cut, we're not going to see that. So that's why we flip back to the wireframe to see, oh, that's going to cut. My cutter is going to pick that up. I'm going to delete that out, and now we're good to go. And you can tell, even though I have the yellow outline, when it's in wireframe, it just shows the cut lines. It's only going to show that one line. So again, Enhance, you see the yellow. It's a two-color design, but in reality, because it's just an outline color, it's still going to be just our same black vector, one color, one cut line. Alright, so I know that was a little bit, but does everyone understand how a vector will look and how to check with the wireframe before cutting? Alright, perfect. Alright, so again, the B-spline's the most common tool you'll use in this area. The 3-point curve is nice with some designs, and I'll show you that real quick. All it is you click your starting point, or you click and hold, and then you drag to whatever area you want to stop. And if you hold shift while doing this, it will create a straight line. Now when I let go, wherever I want that curve, I have control of the line now. So if I wanted, like maybe a wave or something like that, or just different looks, I can edit this line to however I want that curve. Again, this tool's here. Sometimes it's nice, like if you have a text to path and you want like a weird text or a weird path to kind of follow, you can definitely use it that way. But most of the time, this is, other than using that, you probably won't, other than using it for text, you probably won't use this tool too much. So the next is the artistic media tool. That's a little bit much right now. We're not going to really cover that. We don't use that too much, so we're just going to skip down to our basic shapes. Now when I say basic shapes, we have all these shapes We have our rectangle, ellipse, and our polygon. Now if I drop this down, we actually have a basic shapes category. So all of these are, I consider the basic shapes, even though they have their own. They'll all work the same way. So with our rectangle and our circle, let me just show you these real quick. Now, you're probably not going to just draw a square or draw a circle, but it's good practice to kind of see how these tools work. Now, if I hold Control, it will make it a perfect square. Even though it's called the rectangle tool, it will make it a perfect square. If I let go of Control, then I can control whether this is a rectangle, what type of rectangle, the height, the width. I can make it really long, I can make it really tall. However I want to make this rectangle, I have complete control now. So again, Control makes it a perfect shape, where just holding it and dragging it, I can make it whatever type of rectangle I want. Same with the circle. If I want a perfect circle, so you will use the circle a little bit more with designing, especially rhinestoning. You'll probably use the circle tool. If you need it an oval, you'll just let go of Control, and then I can change this and make it whatever type of circle or shape I want. So Control again, perfect circle, perfect square, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what shape it is, as long as I hold Control, it'll make it perfect. If I don't, I can make whatever odd shape I want with whatever shape I have selected. So now with the polygon and some of these other shapes, you can even edit them even more. So when I click this polygon tool, you'll see up top here we have points or sides. So if I want to add to this, I can change the shape of this polygon. And let me draw a perfect one and then add some shapes so you can kind of see how this will really change. So, you know, it's going to eventually look like get closer and closer to a circle, but this will control how many points are on that polygon that you just drew. So with these other tools, you'll see when I drop this down, I have the star. So if I draw the star, same thing, I can add extra points. And the star even goes a little bit further and adds the sharpness. So if I decrease this, you can see how these insides lines will expand, and the sharpness of this, each point gets a little bit less. So if I go higher, you can see how it goes in. So you can go even more, and it'll get closer to that center. So again, these tools they're there, but you can also manipulate them and create unique designs with a lot of these shapes. So you won't use the graph or spiral too much. And then the next big one is the basic shapes. So right away you'll see the heart. That's probably the most used one that we'll use. All the other shapes, maybe the raindrop, all the other ones you're probably not going to use too much, but they are there. And again, to change, when you go to basic shapes, it's going to pop up right at the top here, the last shape you use. So if I switch to this little happy face and I draw that and I come back to my square and I'm like, actually I need another basic shape, so I hit basic shape tool. Well, right here you'll see the smiley face now. So I just click that, drop down, and then I can choose a different shape. So same with the heart. If we want a perfect heart, I hold Control. If not, I can change up however I want it to look. So if I want a little more squished, I can control it that way. And if I hold Control on my keyboard, it will just make a perfect heart every time. And again, that's going to work with all of our basic shapes. So we have a lot of different ones through here. So definitely take a look. Some of the banners might help with some of your designing as well. So when you have a little time, go through those. If you click one of these shapes down here where it says like shapes, that means that there's more options up here. So you'll see the drop down and then it'll add more shapes up top. So it's just kind of giving you an example. So banner shapes, but when I click down here, you'll see that there's actually 4 or 5 examples that we can use. All right. So is everyone good on the shapes? Does anyone need to see anything again? Alrighty. So the next big one is going to be the text tool. So I'm not sure how the other programs work. I know X6 and all the Corels will work the same way. I'm not sure with Silhouette or Adobe or any of those kind of other graphic programs how they work, but when we want to type something with our text tool, the most common mistake I see is everyone wants to draw a text box, and then they'll start typing in the text box. Let me make this a little bit larger, or zoom in so we can see it. So if I write something like this, well, now I don't really have too much control of this, except I can change the font in here and make it a little bit bigger. But instead of drawing a text box, if I just select my text tool, you'll see the A. So when you see that A, that means we have our text tool selected. Well, now I just click once, let go, and you'll see that drop just our text area. So now I can just start typing the same thing. But instead of it being in its own box, now I have more control. So if I want to make it a larger, I can. If I want to make it smaller, if I want to stretch out the top or bottom, I can do that all once I have this just the text. If I draw a text box, well, then you're shaping the box and everything around it, and it's not going to work the same. Right? So when you're drawing text, again, we don't want a box. That's going to cause us problems. So instead, we just select our text tool, just click once, and you should start seeing that kind of blinking line, and then we can write whatever we want. And again, once we select that, we can select our text. Here's our text drop down, so we have all of our text here, and we can still switch it to any style we want. So you could still switch it to different styles in this box, but you're not going to have, it's going to be a lot harder to control, you know, if you wanted to edit the text height, the width, if we wanted to add an envelope to it. All that is going to cause us problems if we draw a text box. So does anyone have any questions about the text tool? Yeah, so someone already said, you know, that's one of the first things they did. They drew a text box and it wasn't working the same. So yeah, always just select your text tool, click, and then just start typing. And that's all you'll have to do. Alright, so we'll keep going. Most of these here we're not going to use too much. The transparency, you might use that a little bit when you're working with your designing. If you're just doing vector art and with vinyl, yeah, so yeah, no problem. Someone asked us if we can break the text apart. So that's not a problem. So let me just go ahead and write this out again. So we have our TRW rocks. I'm not going to worry about fixing that capitalization. So if you have the TRW toolbar, right here you'll see break apart. So that's the shortcut for it. Otherwise, under Object on Corel, you'll see break artistic text. So that if you have two words, it will separate the words. And then if you do it again, it should separate each letter. All right, so someone asked real quick, how do I add the TRW toolbar? So I can go through that real quick. Does anyone else have that problem adding the toolbar? Does everyone, if you have the TRW Design Wizard, does everyone have their toolbar installed? All right, so mostly everyone does. Okay, so it should be pretty much the same process. If you, in this little area you have up here where we have all our other toolbars, if you right click, you should see all your toolbars that you have that you're using right now. So I have the TRW toolbar already installed, so that's why you're seeing it there. If you haven't added it yet, then you won't see the TRW toolbox. So, or if you just added it and didn't know, you might just have to, if it's unchecked, Version 2 might be a little bit different. I'll have to check. I don't think we had the toolbar the entire time. It used to be more of just an icon. So let me double check with the version 2, but I'm pretty sure the version 3 should still have it. But I'll definitely check with that, Allison. But anyways, you'll hit custom. If you don't already have the toolbar, really easy. We'll just hit customize, workspace, and then import. So it's going to bring us a little import workspace, step 1 of 5. Hit browse. You'll just go to your documents. Now, if you have an older version of the Stone Wizard, I'm pretty sure this is just the 3 though. But this is how you would install it. So ours is the version 4. We renamed it to the Design Wizard. So if you're working in 4, you'll hit Design Wizard, and then you'll see the toolbars, and then you'll see toolbar X7 and X8. Now I have X7 and 8 installed on my computer, so that's why it's giving me those options. If you have X6, it should give you the X6 option as well. So then you'll just double click. I want this for X8. You'll hit next, next, current workspace. So it should be current. So next again, and then this will just be finish. I don't want to do it again to save over it, so I'm going to hit cancel. Once you do that step, it's not going to automatically appear. Now you'll have to pretend like it's one of these unchecked ones. So if I hit layout, it's going to pop out with my layout toolbar. So you can pretend this is your TRW, and wherever you want it on your workspace, you can kind of just hover it in that area, let go, and then you'll see it stuck there now. And if you want to edit any of your toolbars, you'll see that lock toolbars. So if I let this go, you'll see these little gray gradient areas on the left side of every toolbar. So the one I just added here, my layout, I can drag that out, hit the X, and now that will just get rid of that toolbar. So my TRW toolbar is over here. If I wanted that removed, or if I wanted it over here on the side, I can move that to the side as well. So however you want your layout, you can move this around, and once you're done moving stuff, go back, hit lock. That way you don't accidentally grab stuff and move it around. Alright. So is everyone good with installing the toolbar? Alrighty. So, and we were good with the breaking apart text too, right? Everyone saw how we did that. Was there any questions about how we break it apart? I know I kind of skipped right past that. Alright, yeah, so I'll show the break apart real quick again. So I'm just going to do TRW rocks. And this is, like, this tool works really well. Like if you're just trying to get a little bit different with your text, and someone has someone asked with the boxes in the middle of the page, and that's our workspace box, and I'll go over that in a second too. So let's just say, let's pick our, I know our bubblegum font kind of will show this point a little bit better, but if we wanted these text, once we write everything out, you know what, I want my text actually just underneath, I want rocks underneath TRW. So instead of deleting it and retyping it, I can go to objects, break apart. Now since this is 2 different words, it will recognize that with every space. So now I can grab my rocks and just kind of throw it underneath and have it a little bit layered like that instead. Or if I wanted it even broken apart more, where I move each letter, then I can just highlight both again, or one at a time, hit object. Oh, I guess we'll do one at a time. Break apart, and you can see right here, Control K. I didn't show you guys this yet, but any of these tools that you see, these like Control L, Control K, Control Q, Control Shift plus Q, those are all shortcuts. So if I have this right here, it's not separated, but if I hit Control and K at the same time, it will separate each one of those for me. So those little things you see on the side, under effects, you'll see it. All these different tools will have shortcuts. So F9, Control F2, those are all shortcuts. So sometimes you'll remember, like Control Z will go back a step. So right now I have this separated. To move those back, I can just hit Control Z. So undo, same thing. So those are little shortcut keys in the wizard. So again, once you separate this, now I can kind of move these around a little bit. I can twist them. And now it just makes my text look a little bit different, and just adds a little bit something different to your design. So that's why we can break apart text and what you can do with it when you break it apart. So the next question was, what was this page in the middle of our workspace? So this is just our page setup kind of. Now in our customization, that's what I was showing you when we go to document and page size. You can edit all that. Now I can make it 20 by 20, and now every time I open Corel, this will be a 20 by 20 page. When we're exporting to certain cutters or exporting certain files, you will need to have your artwork saved in your workspace. So we just made this 20 by 20, but let's just say it's at the standard 8 by 5 and 11. Now, maybe our design is 10 inches wide by 12 inches tall. So I'm just going to draw a little rectangle that's a little bit larger. So 11 by 13 is our new design. Now, if I try to export this or save it, sometimes it will only grab what's in the box. So it might cut off half of your design. It might not export correctly. So to make it really simple, to make this page larger, if I don't have anything selected, it's going to show me my page dimensions at the top. If I have this blue square selected, it's going to show my dimensions for that object. So when we're working in Corel, to get a quick dimensions, you just look right here, not the XY, but the height and width. You'll get the dimensions for your object. So to fit in our page, we're going to have to make this, again, it's almost 11 inches wide by 13 tall, so we'll make it, just so we know it fits, we'll do 12 and 14. So now when I set this to the page, you'll see the page on the outside, and now we'll know that it will export without any problems. So sometimes if you save a Corel file in Corel, you're not going to really have to worry about the page size. It's going to grab it. If you have multiple pages down here in the same page, so if we're right here, we have our pages, so we're in Untitled 2. If I open a new one, it will be Untitled 1, and the next one should be 3, and so on. So inside of these pages, you can create multiple layers. So down here, you have this little 1 of 1, but if I hit this plus, it will say page 2 now. But all of this is still under Untitled 2. So if I were to save a Corel file right now, if I just go to File, Save, or File, Save As, Corel, you'll see CDR, Corel. Now, that will save both page 1 and 2. Even if I had 3, anything that's under Untitled 2, it will save all of those pages. If I have the same page, or if I'm working on the same Untitled 2 and I have all 3, and I need to export this as maybe an EPS or SVG or a different type of file, it will only recognize the first page or the page we're on. So be careful when you're saving if you have multiple layers, and if you're working with our software. I know this isn't part of Corel, but in our templates area, we have some of these places will ask, do you want to create a new page? Or especially on our templates, you'll see current or new page. So if I make a template and I have new page selected and I hit TRW Magic Separator, now you'll see page 1, page 2 is what I just did, and then the 3 and 4 is what I've already created. So sometimes it will add these pages without you realizing it to make that not happen, I could do the same thing. And let me delete all these. If I had my original page and I hit current and hit the same thing, you'll see that we're still on page 1. Right. So saving as a Corel file, usually you don't really have to worry about putting anything in the correct workspace or anything like that, and it will automatically recognize that there's all those extra pages open and save it all as one document. If you're exporting as a different file, you'll need to individually save everything if you have multiple layers. Or you can bring everything on one page and then save it as an EPS or an SVG. But definitely, if you have multiple layers down here, combine them when you're doing an EPS or SVG, or you'll have to save them individually. So any questions about the saving or how the page layouts work? Alrighty. Alright, well, I think that's going to wrap up today's webinar. Does anyone have any questions about anything we covered, or did they need to see anything in particular that I didn't cover? I didn't want to go too far into it today. I know we have some more overviews coming up next week, so those are going to hit some other points. But if there's anything you guys wanted to see or had a question about anything Corel, let me know and I can cover that or go over that really quick. All right, seems like everyone's good. All right, well, yeah, and someone asked, I appreciate that, Rose. Thank you very much, and thank you, Patricia. But yeah, these will be recorded. Usually it takes about 2 to 3 days to get them processed or edited and then back on YouTube and then the links hooked up. So we're getting a little bit quicker with it, trying to speed up the process of getting those back up. But any webinar we create will be recorded. Now the ones coming up next week are paid webinars. There's a 1 and a 2-parter. It's going to go into some more basics of Corel and the wizard. Now those are great because any premium, and we say premium, so a webinar that isn't free, they're going to go a little bit more into detail. They're usually a little longer, but on top of the recorded version, you're going to get a step-by-step guide, and you're also going to get most of the designs that were created during that webinar. So they're definitely worth a lot more. But yeah, the free ones are great as well. We try to, generate these as much as we can. And they'll always be recorded just like the other ones. Just the difference between, I know the ones coming up, and those ones are only $5 each. Usually the premiums are $10. It's a 1 and 2-parter though, so each one's $5. But again, those ones are going to be great because you're going to get a written guide too. So all that's going to be written down, so it's a little bit easier to follow along too. All right, last chance. Anyone need to see anything again? Any more questions? All right, and yeah, share if you're still there. I did send you an email a little bit ago, so I know you sent an email to me, so I did respond to that. So hopefully we can link up tomorrow. But other than that, thank you guys for coming. Check out our upcoming webinars this week. We got like I said, we have the overviews next week, and then later this week we got a scatter design using live templates. So it's going to be a live template mixed with rhinestones and vectors. So if you guys are new to the live templates, they're awesome. So I incorporated some of that with rhinestones too. But if you have any additional questions on anything we covered, give us a call at 941-755-1696 or shoot us an email at info@therhinestoneworld.com. And yes, Allison, I'll definitely check on that version 2 with you too, and try to send you an email. All right, well, you guys have a great rest of your day, and thank you for coming.